Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 23rd of May of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, and this video we will start with a very interesting and very important article that was published by pro-Russian sources, by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia. So the Russians are saying that the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, wants to organize work to destabilize the situation in Russia under the guise of spreading patriotic content. At the end of April, Kiev launched a campaign to purchase Russian military and patriotic Telegram channels. The offers to purchase are being sent from specially created fake accounts and are being conducted on behalf of public figures who are leaders of public opinion. These actions aim to replace the information content of the acquired platforms and subsequently use them to disseminate disinformation and discredit the political leadership of the Russian armed forces. Recently, attempts by Ukrainian special services to exert a destabilizing influence on Russian society have intensified. So this is a very interesting statement, and telling the truth, these days I have noted a very interesting situation. You know that right now the Ukrainians are conducting a counteroffensive operation along the entire line of combat contact. And sometimes the Ukrainians are counterattacking in the areas where the Russians were attacking a year ago. So what does it mean? For example, today I have found a very interesting example around the settlement of Kamenskaya. Today, pro-Russian sources published a very interesting video, this one. And according to the author of this video and according to this Telegram channel, this update took place recently. And in this video, we can see how Russians were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. And according to the author, this video author of this Telegram channel, these attacks took place on the 23rd of May of 2026. So this is the situation. I would like to point your attention to this moment. And this is exactly what the intelligence service, Foreign Intelligence Service of Russian Federation is talking about. So right exactly in this very moment we can see an FPV drone attack carried out by Russians on positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, according to the author of this Telegram channel, according to pro-Russian channel. Probably this channel was purchased by SBU of Ukraine. This attack took place right exactly in this area. But if we rewind updates on August of 2025, we will see the same attack, not the same attack, but a very similar video to this one that took place on the 12th of August of 2025. In this video, we can see the same unit and we can see the same FPV drone attacks. And in these several moments and several episodes from this video were taking place also through this tree line. So what exactly pro-Russian, the intelligence service of the Russian Federation is trying to tell us? The thing is that sometimes the Ukrainians once again counterattack right now at the same places where the Russians were attacking a year ago. Which means that if you take a video that was made a year ago when Russians during their offensive operation were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, let's say at this point of the siege of Kamenskaya, and if this video, if this channel to purchase, to buy this channel by SBU and to publish the same video but from another angle or some archive video that hasn't been published from the same point but this year, many sources and many reliable sources will believe that this is the progress on the ground from the Ukrainian side. Several months ago, several weeks ago, we had the same situation, but concerning the siege of Stepnogorsk. If we increase the number of updates, let's say since the 20th of April of 2026, you will understand what I'm trying to tell you. So, for example, a video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, by pro-Russian sources, not this one, but there was a video, this one, This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources recently, just several days ago, and later this video was taken by pro-Russian sources and published through many channels. And in this video that was published on the 18th of May of 2026, you can see how Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of the city of Stepnogorsk. And many sources on the 18th of May of 2026, including us, made changes and adjusted the map through the siege of Stepnogorsk because this video was published. But later, several independent sources found out that this video was made on February of 2026, so basically 4 months ago when the battle for Stepnogorsk was taking place. But the problem is that due to the fact that the video was published today, many sources adjusted the map. Now let's move further and let's talk about very interesting and very important statements that these days Kiev authorities are making about the situation. Zelensky once again stated that a threat of attack from Belarus is real. There is a threat of attack from Belarus on Volyn, Zhytomyr and Rivne regions, not just Kiev and Chernigov regions, he said in an evening address from Rivne. Russia may attempt to attack Rivne nuclear power plant, he added. Yesterday, Zelensky even threatened a preemptive strike against Belarus. Lukashenko called this chatter and stated that Belarus would only answer the war if Ukraine attacked it. Another important statement on this matter was made by different authorities and politicals of Ukraine. According to information we have been tasked with preparing the populated areas in the Kiev region for circular defense, said Danchin, the head of the Vyshgorod Regional State Administration of Ukraine. Zelensky also emphasized that Ukraine is preparing new sanctions, both long-range and legal ones. Another important thing that we need to understand about a possible offensive operation from Belarus is that the Russians don't need to answer the city of Kiev. The Russians don't need to answer the cities like Bucha and Irpin, the cities where the clashes were taking place during the first days of the special military operation. Pro-Ukrainian sources stated that the only thing the Russians need is to improve their positions at least a little bit along the border. Zelensky again stated that Russia is preparing an offensive from Belarus. We have received information from various intelligence services about a possible escalation from the north. Furthermore, Vyshgorod authorities report that they are preparing settlements in the Kiev region for perimeter defense. And this one is the most important thing. Kiev will lose sleep if Russia advances several kilometers from the north. This statement was made by founder of the Ukrainian Aerial Reconnaissance Center, former deputy Lutsenko. He says that Russia no longer needs to answer Irpin or to strike Kiev. It will be enough to advance to Ivankov's level. So the Ukrainian authorities are trying to tell us that now the Russians just need to improve their positions just for 10 or 20 kilometers along the border. And pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that the only thing Russians need is to get the river by the name of Teterev. So this is the river, and this is the way how the river goes from the river of Dnipro further in the southwestern direction. And pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that the Russians, if they want to force the Ukrainians to accept Russia's demands or to create significant number of problems for Ukrainians and for the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, the only thing the Russians need is to get this river from the border with the Republic of Belarus. And if Russians are able to establish complete control, let's say, over the settlement of Ivankiv, that was noted during the statement, then the Russians would be able to shorten the distance between edge positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, for less than 60 kilometers, which is already the range of work of several drones, even FPV drones with fiber optic and of course missiles. So pro-Ukrainian sources are trying to tell us that if Russians are able to begin bombing and attacking the city of Kiev with artillery, this will most likely force the Ukrainians to start the negotiation process with Russia, and we will see the same process as we used to see in 2022. At least this is exactly what the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, is talking about and is trying to convince people of Ukraine to believe in. But at the same time, several political sources are saying that all these statements have just one purpose: to distract the attention of population of Ukraine from corruption scandals that are currently taking place on the territory of Ukraine itself. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Kherson. During the previous 24 hours, we continue receiving warning updates about the situation in this area. Not just warning, but alarming updates. We have a report once again that Ukraine is proposing a local ceasefire to Russia in Aleshki. So this is the first time since the beginning of the special military operation when Ukrainian sources suggested and proposed Russians to start evacuation of this or that settlement. And this is something unbelievable. We haven't seen anything like this since the beginning of the special military operation, which makes this proposal probably a very, very interesting and worthy attention. Why the Ukrainians are doing this, we have already discussed this. The problem is that the city of Kherson is located on higher position than the city of Aleshki, and Ukrainians from the city of Kherson, with its multi-story buildings and micro-districts, are able to see everything through the city of Aleshki, which means it makes a perfect situation to bomb and attack the city with artillery. But Ukrainians are not able to begin a ground operation in this area because there are civilians, and according to information from the open source, from the internet, there are still 6,000 people living in this area. So that is why the Ukrainians propose to start evacuation. And of course, if Russians make this evacuation, probably and most likely the Ukrainians, due to control over the city of Kherson and its strategic elevations, are able to begin a ground operation in this area with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement of Aleshki and to create a foothold on the Russian side of the river of Dnipro. So this is a possible situation. As of now, the Russians are trying to concentrate additional troops in this area, but the Ukrainians control the situation. For example, in this video, we can see how Russians brought additional forces in the area of the city of Aleshki, but due to the fact that Ukrainians have hundreds of drones over this territory, we see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Basically, due to the fact that Aleshki is located in the lowlands, the Russians are not able even to move during the daylights in this area without problems from the Ukrainian side. Of course, the Russians are trying to do the same thing. The Russians also use hundreds of drones to attack positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of Kherson. But the city of Kherson has much more a bigger number of high-rising buildings and so on, which makes the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine more favorable. Furthermore, the Russians intensify aviation bombardments of the Ukrainian side of the river of Dnipro. In this video, we can see how the Russians were bombing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the Ukrainian bank of the river of Dnipro. So something is brewing in this area, and most likely something will happen here sooner or later, either from the Russian side or from the Ukrainian side. But one thing is clear, that due to the current level of technologies and due to the current level of drones and the qualities of drones, it's impossible to save a status quo in this area. The front will start moving sooner or later, and probably sooner than later. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Zaporozhye direction. We have discussed the situation through the western Zaporozhye direction. The Russians are not providing any information on the matter of the western Zaporozhye direction, but as we discussed during the previous videos and today, since the end of April of 2026, according to different sources, probably sometimes even according to fake videos or something like this, the Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly. And as you can see, these are the changes on the ground just for 23 days. The Ukrainians, according to different sources, have improved their position significantly, and according to probably or not a fake video, the Ukrainians approached the city of Kamensk from the northeast. So everything is possible in this area, and once again something is brewing through the Dnipro direction. And as I told you many times before, I think that the Zaporozhye assault operation from the Ukrainian side will take place this year. The city of Orekhov, the Russians intensify bombardments of the city with aviation. Lots of videos were published during the previous 24 hours. Here we can see how Russians reducing the city of Orekhov to ruins with strikes, with significant number of strikes. Furthermore, the Russians established complete control over the main logistic lines, and the Russians don't allow even a vehicle to enter the city of Orekhov, and they attack everything that moves with FPV drones. So the Russians continue preparation before the beginning of a major battle for the city itself. Meanwhile, the Russians continue improving their positions through the eastern Zaporozhye direction, and today we received changes on the ground on the theater of the settlement of Vozdvizhevka. These are the changes on the ground between the previous 3 days. So this is the end of the 20th of May of 2026. This is the end of the 21st of May of 2026. This is the end of the 22nd of May. The settlement of Verkhnya Tsefersa fell in Russia's hands, and this is the end of the 23rd of May of 2026. And according to the latest changes, the Russians control up to 40% of the settlement of Vozdvizhevka, and the Russians continue advancing. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and in this video we can see lots of episodes of how Ukrainians were attacking edge positions of the armed force of the Russian Federation, and at least 2 episodes were geolocated through the settlement of Vozdvizhevka. One of them took place in the central part along the central street of the settlement, and another one through the most northeastern parts of the village. So based on these videos, based on these episodes, we have adjusted the map. It seems that during the next week, between the 25th and the 31st of May of 2026, the Russians will announce complete control over the settlement of Vozdvizhevka. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Zaporozhye direction. And this is another area, another moment where the situation that we discussed at the beginning of this video. Today, or these days, pro-Russian sources published this video where we can see how Russians were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the northern Zaporozhye direction. And once again, the most important thing now, right now, it is very difficult to understand whether this video, these episodes were made the last year during the August or during summer or spring period of time of 2025 when the Russians were attacking in this area, or this video was made today, these days in 2026, because the Russians at the same period of time, during the same weather, during the same color of leaves, were attacking in this area. And when the Russians were attacking, they were attacking Ukraine's positions in this area. But now the Ukrainians are counter-attacking in the same direction, which means that they can publish the same videos, and these videos, same videos, could be used by different sources as proofs, as evidence that the Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly. And the most important thing of this situation is not even whether pro-Ukrainian sources published archived video as new ones this year. The most important thing that very reliable pro-Russian sources use these videos and these proofs as something that can allow them to change their maps. This is the most important thing. As we discussed at the beginning of this video, pro-Ukrainian sources as BU forces are trying to purchase not just something, no-name channels, but reliable channels, reliable async channels. And as I see right now, some channels have already sold their channels because they thought that they were talking with Russian influencers, so with Russian millionaires, Russian channels millionaires. You know what I'm saying, right? So this is the most important thing, and obviously this campaign from the Ukrainian side started these days because exactly these days the Ukrainians are trying to launch or to disrupt the Russian offensive, to launch their own offensive operation, or to force the Russians to make changes in their offensive operation. But at the same time, all these things are signaling just about things that something is brewing and that something is happening right now along the line of combat contact, and all these signs, all these things are signs of the beginning of probably the major battle of this special military operation, not just of 2026, but of the entire conflict. And after the end of this battle, most likely we'll start seeing strategical changes on the ground. Now but one thing is clear to me. One thing is clear that I'm not sure. I can't say anything about Russians. I think that Russians are prepared, but when talking about Ukrainian side, we see that they also prepared for this situation. Now let's move further. As for the Dobropolye direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything special, just lots of FPV drone strikes, and that's it. Small changes were recorded through the southeastern parts of the settlement of Belitska. A video was published today by pro-Russian sources, once again by very reliable pro-Russian sources, and here we can see artillery strikes through the southeastern parts of the settlement. And this is the most important thing, that very reliable pro-Russian sources published this video with geolocations, and according to these video and geolocations, the Russians were attacking these points. So we have a picture as if the Ukrainians counter-attacked and have almost restored complete control over the settlement. But saying the truth now, I'm not sure about this, and of course it's becoming very, very difficult to understand. And the most important difficulties is that the front line have stalled completely. If the front line was dynamic, it was very difficult to understand whether the video is correct or not. But now, due to the front line has stalled, very difficult to understand what exactly is happening this or there. As for the Kramatorsk direction, we have changes in the area of Minkovka. Pro-Ukrainian mappers adjusted their maps in this area, and as you can see, the changes were made in Russian favor. The Russians improved their positions along the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass canal and continue forcing the Ukrainians to fall back from this area completely. As for the Liman direction, we have also changes in the area of the village by the name of Nova. These are the changes on the ground, as we discussed yesterday. But this information was confirmed by a very reliable source, and he didn't change his signature of his post, which means that I believe we can trust this source. And this source stated that the Ukrainians these days began a counter-offensive operation in the direction of positions of the 20th and 25th Army of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, with the purpose to maintain a corridor between the cities of Izum and Oskol and the Barova pocket. Would like to remind you that several days ago, the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation reported about control over the settlement of Barova, but we still haven't received 100% proofs. But if this information is correct, this means that the Ukrainians who are currently located in this pocket are about to lose their main logistic and supply lines. We are talking about this pocket. And the only supply of this pocket goes through the territories of villages and cities like Izum, Oskol, Rubtsi, Lazov, and Pisky-Radkovsky. And of course, this corridor was under control, probably FPV drone control or even artillery control from the Russian side, because the distance between these roads from the settlement of Alexandrovka is already 9 kilometers, which means that the Ukrainians, if they don't want to be encircled in this pocket, the only way to do this, to avoid this encirclement, is to begin this maintaining counteroffensive operation. And it seems that this is exactly what the Ukrainians are doing right now. The Russians, according to these pro-Russian source, is ready to repel this attack. The Russians were ready, they saw everything from this area. So that is why now there are very heavy clashes, and everything depends on the results of these clashes. If the Russians are able to repel this attack with minimal losses, of course the Russians will they will continue their offensive operation, and the Russians will be able to cut this territory and to encircle the Ukrainians in the Barova pocket. So this is a decisive moment right now for the eastern bank of the river Oskol, and in coming days we will understand everything. And as you can see, at the same time with this counter-offensive operation, or with this offensive operation from the Ukrainian side, we received the report that Ukrainians attacked the city of Starobelsk, which basically is located just 77 kilometers from the front line. And obviously the Russians, if they had reserves and reinforcements, they most likely were receiving these reinforcements right exactly from the city of Starobelsk. So that is why the Ukrainians attacked. They attacked a college in this area, and as we discussed during the previous video, This college was significantly damaged by pro-Ukrainian forces, by Ukrainian forces, and basically destroyed. And these 2 days we have been talking a lot about the situation. So at the same time, with attack, the Ukrainians began a counteroffensive operation. Something complicated is happening here right now. Now let's wait and see what is going to happen next. But this is once again a decisive moment for this area. The northeastern parts of Kharkiv region, the Russians during the previous 24 hours continue attacking warehouses, ammo depots of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of the cities of Balaklia, Chiguev, and Kharkiv itself. A lots of explosions, a lots of videos were published from this area of how Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. So the Kharkiv direction is a primary target for Russians, no doubts. The Sumy direction. Today we received a video. We will discuss this video tomorrow. How Ukrainians deployed significant number of reinforcements in the direction of the city, and how Russians were attacking with active drones these upcoming reinforcements on the church of the city of Sumy. So the Ukrainians began reinforcing this direction because they see that the Russians are advancing along the line of combat contact, and it seems that the Russians are about to break through several directions. During the previous 24 hours, lots of videos were published how Russians were bombing and destroying warehouses, ammo depots, and temporary deployment points of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. And furthermore, we had report that the Russians began clashes for the second defense layer, and currently there are very heavy clashes for the villages of Ivolzhanska, Kiyanitsa, Novosich. So the Russians, it seems, began a major offensive operation with the purpose to establish complete control over these territories, and most likely in coming days we'll start receiving updates. The Ukrainians are bringing additional forces to stabilize the situation, but most likely in 10 days we will understand, I'll see the results of this battle. The Russians are tasked to break through these defenses and to begin offensive in the direction of the city of Sumy. At the same time, we have small changes to the southeast of Satki. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking edge positions of Russians. One of the attacks took place right exactly in this area. Based on this video, we came to the conclusion that Russians improved their positions and that the Russians are trying to encircle the settlement of Satki and to begin advancing through this big forest. So the major battle is intensifying, and telling the truth, we can expect everything from this, anything at outcome of this general battle. Anything is possible, and everything is possible as well. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds to condemn